50 years ago, on September 9, 1966, Star Trek first aired in the US on NBC. Paramount commemorated the 50th anniversary of Star Trek on the big screen with the release of Star Trek Beyond, a film which sadly underperformed in a pretty big way, despite being a movie fans rather enjoyed. A 50th anniversary Blu-ray box set featuring the entire original series, animated series, and movies was released, but with the exception of Wrath of Khan, none of the movies were remastered, so the set still wasn't the ultimate Star Trek Blu-ray set fans have been clamoring for. On television, CBS missed the anniversary altogether, as the upcoming new series Star Trek Discovery wasn't scheduled to premiere until January of 2017 and has now been delayed until May of 2017. In other words, not the most impressive of 50th anniversary celebrations. What is the state of Star Trek today in 2016? What do we know of the upcoming series Star Trek Discovery? What is the speculation and how does it tie into the Axanar fan film lawsuit? That is what will be covered in this video. While neither Paramount nor CBS went all out in celebrating the 50th anniversary, Star Trek is certainly in a far better state today than it was 10 years ago for its 40th anniversary. Back in 2006, the last Star Trek movie had bombed 4 years earlier, and Enterprise had been prematurely canceled the year before after just 4 seasons. There was wide agreement that there was franchise fatigue at play, and that Star Trek needed a rest before it could be brought back, which there were no solid plans for at the time. Of course, it wouldn't take too long before the reboot, which would open in 2009, would be announced. While far from all were sold on J.J. Abrams' take on the property, and Paramount eventually would lose the momentum that the movie garnered, the 2009 movie did reinvigorate the brand and brought many old fans back and even brought new fans in. While there was still no new Star Trek series on television, IDW had started what was to become the new golden age for Star Trek in comics. Today, IDW has not only fleshed out and told the canon stories of what transpired between the rebooted movies and the comics, but has also given us some very cool miniseries and crossovers, as well as continued the original series with some very compelling photo novels that you should be reading. While Trek has seen even better days in the past, it has also seen far worse days. With a new TV series on the horizon, the future is looking bright. Star Trek Discovery, now set to debut in May of 2017, is the first new Star Trek TV series for over a decade since Enterprise was prematurely canceled in 2005. It was announced on November 2nd of 2015, but by the making of this video in late September of 2016, we still know very little about the upcoming series. But let us run through what we do know of Star Trek Discovery. On February 9th of 2016, Bryan Fuller was announced as the showrunner of the then untitled Star Trek series. Bryan Fuller is today most known as the showrunner on the excellent series Hannibal and Pushing Daisies, but he actually started out as a writer for Star Trek Deep Space Nine and Star Trek Voyager, where he worked under the restrictions of another notorious showrunner.
Fuck you, Rick Berman.
Despite his later success, Fuller remains a hardcore Trekkie. Fuller first expressed his desire to produce a new Star Trek series as early as 2009, which was when he told his agent and J.J. Abrams' team that he had an idea for a new series. He wanted to return to the spirit and attitude of the original series, but shake up the usual formula of the captain and his senior officers. However, no series at the time came to fruition. 4 years later, in January of 2014, Fuller reiterated that he would drop everything to be the showrunner on a new Star Trek series. 2 years later, he would get the chance. On the producing side, Fuller is joined by Alex Kurtzman, who also produced the new Star Trek movies. Another high-profile name involved is Nicholas Meyer, the director of The Wrath of Khan and The Undiscovered Country, both of which are considered among the best of all the Star Trek movies. Meyer will function as a consulting writer and producer and will possibly even write several episodes himself. A fairly high-profile director is also known to be involved, namely Vincenzo Natali, the director of the feature films Splice and Cube, as well as a number of episodes of Hannibal and the upcoming Westworld. Joining the production as an executive producer is Roddenberry, the son of Star Trek creator Gene Roddenberry. Star Trek Discovery will take place in the year 2255 in the Prime timeline, meaning the same continuity as the original series, Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager, and not the same timeline as the new movies, which is referred to as the Kelvin timeline. The year 2255 is 10 years before Captain Kirk's 5-year mission in the original series. At this time, it was Christopher Pike who was captain of the Enterprise, which we might not see anyway as we will follow the crew of the Starship Discovery. In keeping with Fuller's desire to change up the formula, the protagonist of Star Trek Discovery will not be its captain, but its second-in-command, a non-Caucasian female referred to as Number 1. Fuller has previously expressed interest in casting Angela Bassett and Rosario Dawson, both of whom have packed schedules which may preclude the participation of either. There will also be more aliens than usual, more robots, and at least one LGBT character. Both Netflix, the emerging standard for streaming services worldwide, as well as Hulu and Amazon, expressed interest in distributing the show. Alas, CBS President and CEO Leslie Moonves saw fit to develop the series as a CBS All Access exclusive, in an effort to drive more subscribers to CBS's own streaming platform. For audiences everywhere else in the world but North America, Star Trek Discovery will, however, be a Netflix exclusive, free of commercials. Being distributed digitally, the series isn't bound to the restrictions of broadcast network television, meaning Fuller can push the boundaries for both language and content. While some episodes will work standalone, Season 1 will feature a main story arc told over the course of 13 episodes, with a new episode being released weekly rather than the entire season dropped all at once. Fuller has expressed an interest in future seasons only being 10 episodes long. At the time of making this video, the story in Star Trek Discovery is still being kept under wraps, but we have a little bit to go on. Fuller has said that Discovery will feature an incident in Starfleet history that has been referenced in existing Star Trek canon, but never fully explored. Nicholas Meyer has stated that Fuller considers the feature film Star Trek VI: The Undiscovered Country to be a touchstone for the series. Furthermore, Fuller himself has tweeted that he considers the original series episode Balance of Terror a touchstone for the series. These are enough clues to make some educated guesses. Warning: we are now reaching the end of what we know for a fact about Star Trek Discovery and are entering the realm of interpretation and speculation. The two named touchstones, Balance of Terror and The Undiscovered Country, have a few things in common. Both deal with Cold War, and both deal with warriors and tacticians squaring off against each other in battles of brains more so than brawn. Tonally, both are serious, dealing with contemporary, real-world issues including bigotry, resentment, and prejudice. Furthermore, both deal with an enemy with the ability to cloak their presence, which may or may not be included in Fuller's definition of touchstone. While there are numerous incidents in Starfleet history which have been spoken of but not fully explored, not many coincide with the time frame of 10 years before Kirk's 5-year mission. Furthermore, Fuller himself has ruled out the Romulan War and Battle of Axanar, both of which took place before 2255 anyway. But there is one popular recurring theory among Trekkies, one which does tick all the boxes. Here at Midnight's Edge, we have chosen to refer to this theory as Antos 4. In the Next Generation era, about a century after the events of the original series, Captain Kirk is a rock star, the legendary captain from the past that all other Starfleet captains look up to and aspire to be. Before Captain Kirk became that rock star captain, there was an earlier rock star captain that Kirk himself idolized. No, not Archer, but Garth of Izar. Garth of Izar appeared in the original series episode, Whom Gods Destroy. In this episode, we learn that Garth of Izar is one of the most celebrated and revered Starfleet officers there ever was. Kirk described Garth as his hero, and the captain who set the captain template that all others sought to emulate. As an explorer, Garth had sought out more new worlds and engaged in more first contacts than any other Starfleet captain before him. As a tactician, he was the best of his day, and won the Federation a decisive victory at the Battle of Axanar, which ended the war with the Klingons. We do not know any details of what brought the Federation to Antos 4, but while there, Garth was involved in a crippling accident, the details of which we also do not know. What we do know is that the benevolent inhabitants of Antos 4 repaired his body, but his mind was never the same again. While Garth's tactical genius remained, he became an unhinged megalomaniac who wanted to wipe out the inhabitants of Antos 4 for the perceived audacity of rejecting his offer of universal conquest. Captain Garth's crew, however, retained their sanity and eventually managed to wrestle control of his ship away from him. Do note that however recurring the theory that Star Trek Discovery revolves around Garth of Izar may be in fan circles, it is pure speculation. Prior to the release of Star Trek Into Darkness, there were some who believed that Benedict Cumberbatch's character of John Harrison was actually Garth of Izar, but he turned out to be Khan Noonien Singh, which was also the most prevalent theory. Point being, Fuller and his team could have gone another direction that no one has so far guessed, but the Antos 4 theory does fit with everything we've learned till now. Garth of Izar was a contemporary of Captain Pike, meaning he was still active in 2255, when Star Trek Discovery takes place. If Garth of Izar is indeed the captain of the Discovery, it would make sense to have the commanding officer as the point of view character, because it is this commanding officer who will have to rise to the occasion and relieve the hero of the Federation of his command when he snaps. Another piece of circumstantial evidence comes in the form of a lawsuit. For decades, fans have made their own independent, non-profit Star Trek fan films, while rights holders CBS and Paramount looked the other way. They continued to look the other way as fan films got higher and higher production values, began to star actual Star Trek alum, and appealed to ever larger audiences. They looked the other way when the fan film Prelude to Axanar, which is about Garth of Izar's decisive victory over the Klingons at Axanar, was met with wild praise during Comic-Con of 2014. They looked the other way when the makers of Prelude to Axanar secured $1 million in crowdfunding to make the proper Axanar feature and started spending that money on a soundstage. But in December of 2015, 1 month after Star Trek Discovery was announced, CBS looked away no more and sued the makers of Axanar for copyright infringement. But did CBS engage in this lawsuit because the makers of Axanar took the concept of a fan film too far and paid actors and craftsmen for work on a licensed property they do not own? Or because the story stepped on grounds that CBS intends to cover themselves in Star Trek Discovery? Let us know what you think in the comments. If you like this video, please hit that subscribe button. Join us for spin-free news and analysis of the happenings and corporate politics behind the scenes of your favorite genre movies, as well as explorations of your favorite characters and their backgrounds and context here at Midnight's Edge.